3. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, God, for bringing us here safely tonight. Please give us the guidance and the wisdom to make the right decisions for our community. This we pray. Amen.
Amen. Roll call, please.
Present.
Marcio,
Present.
Martinez,
Present.
Mayor Hennessy.
Present. Item 5, declaration of conflicts of interest. We have none. We're going to skip ceremonial matters. Officer Goslin is sick this evening. We'll move on to 7, communication from staff. No communication?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay, number 8, items from the public, non-agenda items. If something isn't on the posted agenda, please come to the podium and you will have 3 minutes to make your comments. And at this time, I would like to introduce Lee Lundgren, Stanislaus County Clerk Recorder. She will give us a demonstration on the new touch-tone voting screens for our June 3rd election. That's fine.
You're fine.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to extend that time to Lee Lundgren more than 3 minutes.
Oh, definitely.
Thank you. I was worried about that. Mr. Mayor, City Councilman of Newman, it is a delight to be here today. My name is Lee Lundgren. I am our Stanislaus County Clerk Recorder and Elections Registrar, and I'm here today to show you a few new things that will be happening in your upcoming City Council election, which will be in just a month from now on June the 3rd. That will be a Tuesday, and you'll be having the very first touch screen election ever in the history of Stanislaus County. So it's taking place right here in Newman. We're really delighted to be able to show this information to you. I'm going to go into a brief background as to why this is taking place so that you and the citizens of Newman understand what's taking place here. First of all, I'm going to move a few things if it'd be okay.
Yes, by all means.
Okay. The election that took place in November of 2000, the presidential election, caused a rift and a change across America that we're feeling today. 2 laws were passed due to that election and the Florida issues that took place thereafter. One of those laws is called Help America Vote Act of 2002. That was an act that was signed into legislation on November the 29th, 2002 by the President of the United States. It basically requires at least 1 direct recording electronic voting device for every precinct to enable voters with disabilities, including the blind and the visually impaired, to be able to vote unassisted in a secret ballot manner. Until now, we've been able to assist people to vote in that manner who were not blind, but that was the last basic frontier of individual who had to have assistance in punching the right ballot. We now have the availability of a touchscreen method that will allow individuals who are blind to be able to put on earphones, listen in, and punch the ballot themselves without any help or assistance or anyone else seeing what that secret ballot is. The other thing that took place is Prop 41, which was passed by the voters in the state of California on March 5th, 2002. This enables over $200 million in bond financing to become available to the various counties to upgrade voting systems. And in upgrading voting systems, it does not designate how they are to be upgraded. Therefore, we are looking into a variety of methods, but with the assistance of the federal law that indicates it must be available to the visually impaired, basically touchscreen is the only thing that brings us in that direction. We are required to have this in place by January 1st of 2006. So we are beginning to look There are 7 certified vendors of touchscreens in the state of California. We have interviewed each of them at the clerk recorder and registrar of voters office. And we are going to be inviting, and we have invited each of them to participate in the Patterson Apricot Festival, which is coming up the weekend prior to your election, so that any of your individuals, voting citizens here in Newman, can go up to that and see any of the 7 different varieties of touchscreen. What we have here tonight to show you is the touchscreen that will be actually used in your election on June 3rd. So there's some wonderful things that you can do with this, and we're going to be able to show it to you tonight, and with the pleasure of your mayor, who is going to come down and actually push buttons for us today. He's indicated he will. So, Mayor, if you would like to come down.
You know, it's funny, he's going to be the test applicant tonight, but we had a taser application done recently. He wouldn't volunteer for that.
Oh, well. And gentlemen, you are all, more than welcome to come up and look at this, and everyone in the audience. And if there's anyone at home right now in Newman watching who would like to come down, please feel free. We'd be delighted to have you come down and take a look, an early look at this voting ability to do touchscreen. Well, sorry, I hear it's taped and it's tomorrow night, so I apologize.
Smart.
Today I have with me Brian Finney. He is from the touchscreen voting business that will be bringing these touchscreens to your community, and he's going to be able to explain a little bit about it tonight, how it works, how it's to be used, and help Mayor John Fantasia do a little voting for us. So I'm going to take this off and hand it to him and let him speak.
Well, thank you, Lee, and Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Brian Finney, and I'm with a touchscreen voting system here, which we have had the honor to bring into your city for this election coming up on June 3rd. And what I'm going to be demonstrating to you today is how your voters here in the city of Newman will be able to come up and easily cast their vote. This system has been designed to help not only the voters be able to cast their vote in an accurate and with the integrity of the ballot, but at the same time assist the poll workers, your community here in the city of Newman, to be able to set up the ballot and to be able to count those ballots at the end of the day and make it as simple for your citizenry as possible. What I'm going to be demonstrating to you right now is actually the process of how a voter comes in on election day and then is able to actually cast their vote. And we could certainly start with the mayor here, and I could show you how that process will work. What will happen is, just like...
Brian, you're going to have to stand and keep the back of it
Okay.
completely, and we're to the side so you can lift it up and it can be on the television screen.
Sure. What will happen on election day is very similar to what happens today. That is that the voter comes in and they come into the election location and they sign in, they qualify to vote just like they do today. Subsequent to that, what will happen is that a poll worker will walk over with the voter and simply activate this touchscreen device. And the way that they do that is simply by inserting a card, an activation card, which is simply a key to actually turn on the unit. And they do that by inserting the card, and then up at that point pops a screen. At this point, you have some options. And if you're visually impaired, you have an option to be able to put on a set of headphones, and the ballot will actually be read out to you. And so again, what we're trying to do is expand the franchise so all voters are able to vote a private ballot. Now, what we also have is an option for a Zoom ballot. And that Zoom ballot has a large font area. It's a large touchscreen area. So any voter can come up and easily review the race, review all the candidates on the race, and at that point they simply have to touch the name of the candidate that they want. They can touch anywhere along that candidate's name, and as you can see, it records the vote. At this point, however, if they wanted to change their mind, the voter simply has to deselect, such as the mayor is doing, and then go ahead and select another candidate. And there's simply a next button there. It's fairly intuitive. Up comes the next race. And you'll notice that he touched 2 because there were 2 candidates that were to be selected there. We also have a write-in option there as well if you have a write-in race at some point. Up pops a alphanumeric keyboard. And dear old Bob was selected. Are you sure you want to vote for Bob? Good for Bob. And at this point, he just continues through the ballot. This is a relatively short race. Short ballot, he has an option at the summary page to review who he voted for. At this point, the mayor can go back and determine who he voted for. If he wanted to make a change, he simply has to select one of those names, one of those candidates, and it will take him back to that previous race where he can make a new selection if he wanted to. So this option gives you a chance to be able to go back and review your ballot before you actually cast your vote. When he's all done and he's satisfied, he can hit the next button, and at this point there's a flashing vote sign, and all he simply has to do in order to cast that vote is touch that flashing vote sign, and it is done, it's cast, and it's securely stored within this touchscreen voting system. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And whoever else wants to participate in this, we're going to be here throughout this session, and you can come up and certainly try it yourself. We invite the council.
If you'd like to come up at any time, you are more than welcome. There's a couple of things we're going to show you on the screen right now. There's a couple things we're going to show you on the screen right now. Let me get it into focus for you. This is the type of sheet that would be right next to the booth that is available for the machine, the voting touchscreen, to sit in. And it will explain to the voter what they are to do when they get in the booth. Select the language you would like. In this instance, it will be in English or in Spanish. So they will be able to touch the screen, and they will be able to touch and obtain it in English or in Spanish. They would then be able to read the ballot type, the touch here to start, which you've already seen here tonight. The next part says to vote, touch the screen name of the candidate. They can select or deselect at any time. They can then review the summary page to determine if their choice is who they wish. They push cast, and it casts the vote. And I'm going to just put a page up here that shows the actual device. Kind of large and looming over us here while we're here today. This is one of the lighter devices. We saw several of them, and this one weighs about 9 pounds. Some of them were as much as 50 pounds. We were very concerned about that. The other thing that this one has that is a very nice feature is it has an internal audit. So it actually keeps a page printed internally the whole time it's printing, so that you will have a paper audit trail as well as electronic trail after the vote, so that you can ensure, if there's any question whatsoever, that that electronic audit trail and the paper audit trail are identical. In addition to that, there's some other features on it. First of all, it comes in a booth that's very light. I think the total is like about 20 pounds. Am I correct with that? 20 pounds for the whole thing, which we want to make sure that those individuals who have been helping us for many years are able to lift it and carry it and do what needs to be done. And so I think that's about the main parts of it. We anticipate there'll be 3 locations that you will be voting here in Newman. The first at the Newman Library, second at St. James Lutheran Church, and the third at the fire station. You have 2 candidates running, David Reed and R.T. Applegate. At each of the locations, you can vote for those 2 individuals on 2 to 3 touchscreen devices at each location. Just for your further information, sample ballots are becoming available as of today, and they will be mailed out. You have 2,875 registered voters who will be receiving their their sample ballots, and permanent absentees will be mailed out starting tomorrow, and that will be 503 voters in your city are permanent absentees, so they'll be not having an opportunity to use this system. They'll be voting on paper, which will come to them in the usual method it has come in the past. I think that's just about the main parts. Are there any questions from anyone in the audience or from the board?
I just have one question.
Yes.
The way the names appear on the ballot, do they stay consistently the same or can they change periodically?
The names on the ballot will remain the same throughout, and they have been selected by lot by the Secretary of State. The way things are selected in California is the Secretary of State has what is the closest I can explain. It's almost like the lotto with little balls, kind of, and they pick out numbers, or they pick out alphabetized numbers, and the people who are running, candidates who are running, are put in those alphabetical synchronized methods on the voting ballot. They are required to be changed by supervisorial district. So if you were running county-wide or statewide, in each supervisorial district, a different person would come to the top of the ballot and be at the bottom of the ballot. Because you are having just a citywide election, they will all be the same on all of the ballots. So the ballots have been, or the sample ballots have been passed out, and you can see on them that it's basically alphabetical. That's just the way the numbers came out. Tom Applegate's name will be first, and David Reed's name will be second.
Okay, my last question is, after each person votes, you have to reactivate the machine again. Is that that's correct? For the next person to
After
vote?
each person votes, once you push the vote, then that ballot is cast. It is locked into the instrument. It cannot be changed.
But then,
And then it has to be reactivated with each one. So you can't just quickly zip another one off. It's just one per vote, one per person. That's a very good question, actually.
Who has to reactivate it then?
Well,
Someone there.
I'm sure people will try.
It's reactivated by the individual election officer who's working there. We'll be training your election officers on the 29th, I believe. Yes, the 29th of May at 1 o'clock. So if there's anyone else who's interested in being a part of that and listening to that training, you're more than welcome to come. But we will be training them at that point in time.
I guess I wanted to ask a question that you addressed in the correspondence that we had
Yes.
during our actual election in November, and that was the response time for knowing how the election is going. With this just being ours, would the website be accessible for people to kind of look at the results with this automated type system? Or
That's an excellent question, and I do recall your letter and your question. And basically, you are the only race. This is a special election. No one else is running. It's only the city of Newman. And therefore, what's going to happen is we'll be sending out your absentee ballots tomorrow. People should be starting to receive them by the end of this week. They can vote them as soon as they are received and send them back in. They will all be counted on election evening. For the first time that we've ever done this, we are going to be going and bringing all 3 voting booth machines, all the touchscreens, to the fire station. And from the fire station, am I correct there? Yes. Brian probably knows this a little bit better, Mr. Finney does. From that location, they will be electronically transmitted down to our office, so we should have it almost immediately. And we will then be able to count the absentee ballots, run those through the counting machines, have this information, put the two together, and we hope to, within an hour after the close of the polls, an hour or two, have all of your information up. It will be on our website.
Wow.
But I'm sure you'll be calling anyway, so.
I won't call. But
We'll be happy to let you know what happens with that.
thank you.
But that is a good question. It will be electronically sent down to our office. And if there's no more questions, there's a question in the back. What's the voter capacity of the machine? You want to come and take the mic and explain it to them?
99,999 voters. So I should cover Newman, I believe.
I don't know about that. We're growing pretty fast.
Just for your information, each precinct by law has to be 1,000 or less individuals. So I think with the 99,000, we'll clear it quite easily. And And thank you very much. It's just been, we're just really happy and excited for this first ever opportunity, and we're very glad to be able to bring it to you. And thank you for having an election that will allow us to do it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think. Oh. Thank you, Lee.
We're a
Thank you.
historical town in nature, so we like making history.
Yes.
Thank you.
Remember what I said in your office about a little reduced rate for this special test, so just keep that in the back of your mind. Is there any other non-agenda items? Okay, moving on, items from the public, agenda items. At the time the agenda item is addressed, please come to the mic and you will have 3 minutes. Number 9, public hearings. Adopt resolution number 2003, next in number. Adopt resolution number 2003-16, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4. Ernie?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. As stated in the city manager's report, notice to abate letters were sent to several properties. Most of them complied. A few that did not comply are listed on a sheet that was handed out to you prior to the beginning of the meeting. Tonight's public hearing is their opportunity to protest the proposed action, which is staff's recommendation that you declare the property as a public nuisance and direct abatement of same. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer
Questions for
them.
Ernie?
No questions.
If not, I'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for some direction.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to move for adoption of this resolution. However, the item listed number 3, the property owner 660 Hardin Road, to my knowledge, I know, was out of town on military duty, and I've been assured that the listed weeds will be taken care of promptly. I'm going to remove that particular address from the listing, and with that, I'll adopt resolution number 2003 next to number, adopt the resolution number 2003-16 declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
Do we have a second?
Second. If I can.
Any second? You can move.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 10, consent calendar. Number A, approval of warrants. Number B, approval of minutes of the April 22nd, 2003 regular meeting. Item C, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2003-4, an ordinance amending Title 6, Chapter 6, Section 5 of the Newman Municipal Code, engineering and inspection fees and improvement fees.
So moved.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item 11, regular business. Item A, video presentation, cloudy skies over California cities.
I have a question of staff. What's the time frame on this video?
I believe it is about 5 minutes, or less. I forget the exact.
It's short, I've seen it.
6 minutes, excuse me, 6 minutes.
If there's no objections with my colleagues, I'd like to move this agenda item down and move on with regular business. I can concede to moving it down to the last item and watch a short video at the end of our meeting.
That's fine with me.
That's fine.
Okay with everybody? Okay, we'll move on to B. Consider increasing the illumination of street lights in the industrial area.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members, there has been expressed concern about inadequate lighting for security purposes for overnight truck parking in the industrial area. The area we're talking about is M Street, Inyo, and L Street. There are 2 street lights on each street. We have 2 100-watt lamps, two 150 watt lamps and two 200 watt lamps. I do have a PowerPoint presentation to show you what the area looks like during the day and then at nighttime. So if you could, okay. No, that's okay.
This looks like the Cloudy Skies video. It's cloudy.
Okay, this is a 100 watt lamp on a 3-foot arm, and this is looking south on M Street at Stanislaus Street, and that's what it looks like during the daytime. Next. And this is how much illumination there is at nighttime. It's the same area. Oh, it's pretty dark, especially across the street. Next video. This is the 200 watt lamp, and that's about 300 feet north of Inyo Avenue. And again, that's looking south on M Street toward Inyo Avenue. And nighttime shows a little bit more of a lighted area and across the street, but these lamps are separated by about 500 feet is my estimation. So in between those two lamps, it is a pretty dark area. Next. That's a 150 watt lamp on a 3-foot arm, and we're looking to the east on Inyo at T Street of intersection of M and Inyo. And that's what it looks like at nighttime. That lights up the intersection fairly well for traffic purposes. Then we're looking north on L Street and Inyo Avenue intersection. And again, we have the 150 watt lamp on a 3-foot arm. And night vision shows the intersection pretty well lit, but in between those two lamps, it's rather dark at nighttime. Next one shows a 200 watt lamp, and that's, I believe, on a 8 or a 10-foot arm. And we're looking north on L Street towards Stanislaus Street. And nighttime shows the area around it fairly well lit. South of it is the F&A dairy plant and the truck entrance. So to the south, the lighting isn't bad, but to the north it is. Next is, here we're looking south on L Street towards Stanislaus Street, and we have a 100 watt lamp here. As you can notice, there's several poles in between this and the 200 watt lamp that was in the previous slide. And nighttime shows it fairly dark over in that area, and as you can notice, there is a truck parked across the street there. For your consideration, increasing the illumination there, if we were to change the lamps and go from a 100 watt to 150 or 200 watt, the charges for the lamp exchange are about $55. And then the monthly charges are, a 100 watt lamp is $860 per month. And that is 9,500 lumens. A 150 watt lamp is rated at 16,000 lumens at $1040 per month. And a 200 watt lamp is rated at 22,000 lumens at $13.88 per month. If we want to lengthen the arm length, there's about a $250 charge to do so. If we wanted to add additional lights to existing poles, there's no charge for that. However, you do pay the monthly fee for whatever size of lamp, a street light that's installed. Any questions?
Ernie, do you think we should add more lights? I mean, the poles obviously, like on L Street there that don't have lights, you think we should add some more?
I do know that there are some areas that are fairly dark, but because I personally don't have a truck to park down there. I mean, I find it rather awkward to say, well, yeah, no, none is needed, or yes, there is more needed, especially when you're going to be adding all these costs to an already tight budget that's forthcoming.
I was waiting to hear that, actually, about the budget. And mind you, I remember the meeting and recall it very vividly when we made some adjustments for the truck parking. And I remember my colleague here alluding to what we can do to illuminate. But I can't see the city coming forward and paying any cost considerations for accommodation that we've already made for additional parking. It doesn't make sense to me. And I've seen the PG&E bills that the city has to pay. We're for a small town, we pay a lot in energy costs because we're still under PG&E, and it's tough for us to try to mitigate that through as city leaders because we're just kind of caught in a quandary. Everybody else in our county are under better energy cost programs through Modesto or TID, which is Turlock, but we're kind of stuck with PG&E. I'm going to state this emphatically that I would be against us paying any monies whatsoever. We've accommodated the truckers with parking, and I'm going to ask the chief of police, who brought us a plan of accommodating with additional parking. Have there been any reports of break-ins?
There is not, but we haven't had that many truckers parked out there either.
Oh, okay. So therein lies answer to my question. There hasn't been any report of break-ins. You park at your own risk, and I'm opposed to the city having any expenditure on this matter. And I just wanted to convey that to my colleagues. Thank you.
Do we think that maybe the reason they're not parking there is because there is no lighting? I mean, the truckers are in here, and we told them we'd find them another place to park, and we don't want them to be coming back in here again. We want to keep everyone happy. So I'm not sure if anybody's made contact with them, if that's why they haven't been parking there, because of the lighting. I know that was one issue that they did comment on at that meeting, so.
I
Not
haven't
sure.
personally talked with them. That's why it was so difficult for me to come up with a recommendation.
Mhm.
Chief?
I'll wait till they're done.
Switching.
Gotta watch who's manning the camera here. Basically, I haven't had any reports, we haven't had any break-ins over there, but I said the usage has been down. That was a concern that was brought at the last meeting, but I wasn't sure if they were parking overnight or not.
You haven't seen anything come across?
There has been very few trucks
Right.
that have utilized that area.
So they have stopped parking on M Street, though? I mean,
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So we don't know where they went then?
That's a good thing.
Well, it's no longer in the area where we were having problems with them as a city.
That's correct.
On M Street.
Yes.
I'm gonna wait till Bob
Any other
Okay.
questions?
up and
Mr. Navoa, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, thank you. Bob Naveau, 1045 Ruth Avenue. This is a related matter. I would like to see everybody have a place to park. I think it's important that that happen. However, we need to keep in mind that these are free enterprise businesses, and I think there's a limit, and I agree with Councilman Parker, that to what I, as an individual who pay taxes in this town, subsidize somebody else's business. So that's an issue for me. But the main point I want to make tonight is that I would encourage the council to take a look at the Highway 33 right in front of Burger King. That has become a regular truck parking spot. Not for someone that's eating at Burger King. Because when I go to the grocery store in the evenings, it's the same two trucks. And they're there, sometimes I'm there as late as 9 o'clock at night, and they're there. And there's nobody around, and there doesn't look like there's any truckers inside. And so what I would encourage the council to do, if it is all possible, I know you're probably going to need some Caltrans approval, is to make that a temporary parking strip in there. That way those people would not be blocking the highway, because quite frankly, it is a health and safety issue. If you've ever been out there and there's been a truck parked there, which I can understand, folks passing through, stop, get a hamburger, a cup of coffee, whatever, that's fine.
Right.
But I guarantee you, those trucks that are parking there every evening are not parking there for 10 or 20 minutes.
Those guys got the prime spots.
Exactly right. And I don't think that we should all be risking our lives for them to park someplace. Because if you've ever been out there and had to negotiate around those trucks, it is dangerous. And sooner or later, somebody's going to get hurt. And I've now brought this to the table, and you all know about it. And so if it happens, be ready.
You can sue us.
If it's me or my wife, I guarantee you.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen, even in the daytime, if a truck pulls over, their Burger King need is a little hard to get out here on the south end there. But it's, right now they can park there.
Well, yeah, that's what I last asked the police chief. Is that a location that's a legal parking zone?
Yeah.
To answer your question, yes, it is. We had limited parking, and that was one of the spots that we had them parking at. But I tend to agree that basically, even when I'm pulling out of there, I have to pull out quite a ways out to make sure I can traverse those intersections when we have trucks there. Before, I think before we had the issue with the trucks, I think it was more temporary than it is now. I think these trucks are parking overnight and utilizing that. It is a legal spot at this point, and if we need to address that, that would be something, since we have opened up other parking. On the flip side of that, though, back to the lighting issue, I think that if we're that we are going, I think the police department, I think if it's going to be ill-lit over there, I think you're not going to induce people to be able to park over there, and I think the ones that do may fall victim to, I think if the less lighting, the more chance of theft. But on the flip side of that, again, we've also had theft where it's been well lit there on Merced Street. So, although the theft has been somewhat limited, so that's my 2 cents. And I'll be answering any other questions you may have.
Only question I have is actually more towards Ernie.
Okay.
When we pay our monthly, when the city pays the monthly cost for PG&E to provide that service, other than the lighting, what else is included in that? I mean, are they supposed to maintain their lights? I mean, how regularly are they supposed to come out? Because I remember, gosh, probably 7, 8 years ago when I was living on Sydney, and we had a problem with one of the lights, and it was just, it was filthy inside. It looked like it hadn't been taken care of for a long, long time, and them coming out and cleaning it and putting the same wattage, just going through and cleaning the thing, made all the difference in the world. And I just wonder, since we brought this lighting issue out, do we have a regular maintenance schedule with them? And if not, why don't we?
The maintenance is on an on-call basis.
Mm-hmm.
2 of the lights on M Street, they weren't working properly. They would stay on, and then all of a sudden they would go out, flicker, and then after a few minutes they would start up again. So we called them, and within a week they went out and fixed them.
I mean, out there, I haven't really taken a close look. Are those lights, are they taken care of? Are they clean? Are they, have they been replaced? When's the last time they've replaced those with some brand new bulbs?
They're clean and operational. I don't know when they changed the bulbs out, but I do know is that the service, I think, is out of Merced, and they come when you call them if you have a problem with the light going out on you. I know there was a light out on Upper Road by Creek Canyon that had been out for quite some time. We called that in, and they responded right away, but then they said that it had to do with some electrical short underground, and it took them about a month and a half to get it fixed, but they did go out there and get it done.
Okay. Specifically, though, going back to the industrial area, obviously we don't have this extra money to be putting out every month, but at the very least, we should at least have them go out there and do regular maintenance. Because if the lights go out, don't we still pay for them, don't we?
Sure. We call them in as soon as we find out that there's a problem, and the response time is, in the past we have had problems, but lately they've been really good about it.
Yeah. Isn't there I guess are they required to have arm lengths a certain length in industrial areas, or different types of zones, or it doesn't matter? I mean, there isn't anything that specifically says they have to have a certain length of pole in certain
Not
zones.
to my knowledge. I don't know how they do their engineering.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't think we need to really belinger or beat this topic up. I know exactly what it is. They asked for the lighting when they first came in. They were hesitant about addressing the areas that the chief suggested. We can't accommodate them. We're bending over backwards by providing the additional parking. We still have issues with some of the parking that was just related to us tonight. I think the city has done a fair estimate in trying to come forward with some solutions. And I don't concur wholeheartedly with the mayor. We're not going to always make everyone totally happy. But if we can partially meet some of the things that they're looking for, the phone call to PG&E about maintenance, we can keep that at the staff level. As far as considering any increase in illumination that's going to cost the city money, it's not an action item. I see that it's just for our discussion, but I look at the staff report and it says to me unknown, the cost factors, of what we're going to be dealing with. So I see it as a moot issue, other than what my colleagues suggested, that we could keep it at the staff level, stay on top of PG&E, keep the lights clean.
Okay?
Keep the lights on.
Okay.
Is everybody happy with that?
We're all happy.
That's fine.
Maintain what we have for the time being. Moving on, item C, authorize city manager to sign all documents, assurances, and statements in regard to applying for funding of CMAQ projects.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members. The City of Newman is working with StanCog to submit applications for funding under the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program. The application that's going to be submitted will be for the purchase and installation of a slow-fill compressed natural gas dispenser and for the purchase of compressed natural gas vehicles to replace your older vehicles in the Public Works fleet. The proposed location for the filling station will be over by the water tower at 1125 Fresno Street, where we used to have that Convault gasoline dispensing unit. Cost, purchase, and installation and engineering. I received a memo today from StanCog saying that they had bumped it up by $10,000, so that would be $74,000. The vehicles to be replaced, as you can see, are all listed there. They're pretty old units. There's 10 of them. And again, our best guesstimate is $560,000. So we're looking at a cost of about $634,000. And the request here is to authorize the city manager or his designees the authority to sign all documents, assurances, and statements in regard to applying for these CMAQ funds for the project.
Are there any matching funds required by the city?
Yes, there are, but at the present time, we really don't have a good idea what they're going to be. However, I do know that they are minimal compared to what the amount of the funds that are provided for you are. Case in point, Riverbank purchased a $126,000 aerial truck, a boom truck, 45 arm length, 45 foot basket with arm. And their cost was $126,000. They paid $4,800.
Wow, that's what you call a bargain.
You bet. So this is only to give us the authorization to go and to submit the application. And before anything else is done, of course, it'll come to you for approval.
We'll know what the costs are before.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I can just state quickly, the normal match on that is 11%. However, what happened with Riverbank, I believe, and what may be the opportunity for us is that StanCog has the program which provides most of the local match for you, which reduces that down to about, I think it's 1 or 2%. The only question is, there's some uncertainty in the funding that StanCog is going to get this next year, and whether or not that match program will be available in the coming year. But as stated, this is simply to move forward at this point and give us authorization to submit the application. It's not locking us into those dollar figures yet. That'll come back to you at a later date.
And worst case scenario, if the matching funds for StanCog don't come through, have we budgeted for this type of thing as far as, because I know when we replace our police
This will
vehicles-
come up in the coming year's budget,
Right.
and we probably have. I don't have the balance before me. Margaret's not here, but there probably is the funding in our vehicle replacement program through the Public Works Department to look at probably covering that match amount.
And it'll take a while before this comes to fruition. Start enviro studies July the 03, NEPA approved December, final design January 04, right away PS&E February, construction Feb, bid award contract May the 04, start construction June 04, project complete, final invoice August 04. So it's quite a ways away.
When is the next round of funding for this?
The applications are due soon. I think it's around the 1st of June, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So due to StanCog.
Right. We'll put this on our wish list and hope for the best.
There you go.
I'll say something in support of this. Having recently attended a summit in Fresno, Operation Clean Air, hosted by the city of Fresno with the mayor there, Alan Autry. And this was one of the things they talked about in our valley with all of our dirty air problems. I was approached by a person from Riverbank and actually a representative from PG&E about this very matter. So there may be some additional funding out there that can help offset our costs, but anything we can get at such a bargain like Riverbank did, I'm for, even if we have to put up some of the funds. Because part of this is to mitigate the air quality problems that we do have here in the valley.
Any other questions for Ernie? Do I hear a motion?
I move that we authorize the city manager to sign all documents, assurances, and statements in regard to applying for funding for CMAQ projects.
Second.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item D, approve request from Newman Fund Run Committee to hold fundraising event with staff attached recommendation requirements. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. We are approaching the 6th annual event, and it's scheduled for Sunday, May 25th. That's our Memorial Day weekend, and in the past years, it's raised a considerable amount of money for local charities. It's estimated that about 3,000 people attend the event. We get about 1,200 motorcycles and 70 to 100 classic cars. We have never had really any problems out of this event. Last year we did gear up, as you know, quite heavily because of an incident that involved in Laughlin, Nevada. We're looking at presently going down to our own staffing levels of 12 sworn and 3 reserve officers, plus we'll have our complement of our volunteers in Newman and our Explorer Scouts. And won't be any horses, and we're not looking at videotaping, we're just looking at manning the event. We're not anticipating any kind of problems this year. And as you can see, the requirements that we're looking at here are the same as they have been in past years. The only difference I can see here between the request from the fundraiser and our recommendations is the outside vendors, and the I think it's what, $25, Cleve, for the.
I believe so. Yes.
Yes, and so I'll have Mike Maldonado, who will be addressing this point from the fundraiser to come up and speak to that. But if you have any kind of questions regarding that prior to his coming up, I'd be more than happy to answer those kind of questions for you.
Questions for the chief?
What kind of staffing are you going to provide this year, Chief?
We're going to be looking at pretty much all 12 of our sworn officers, including myself, my lieutenant. We're looking at trying to keep the cost down by utilizing a thing called payback. We're on the 4-11 shifts, and so there's 5 payback days, part of that scheduling. We're utilizing that to try and keep the cost down. We utilize that also for the Fall Festival event, and we also use that for training, but that kind of keeps the cost down. I'm free.
You're going to have
And
your
my
Explorers
lieutenant.
out as well, or?
My Explorers and our volunteers and
Volunteers.
Newmans are going to be out there
Okay.
also. So we're going to, and plus we have 3 reserve officers who will be coming out. So
Okay.
yeah, we've never had any problems in this event,
No.
just minor things. So with that, Mike, would you like to come up and address council?
Mike Maldonado, 38 Fairview Avenue, Gustine. Real kind of nervous again. I'm always nervous when I come before you guys. But again, as Chief Brady said, that last year's event was fine. We had a great time. Everybody made some money to put in their pocket, but we'd like to put a little bit more in our pocket, and I think that's where number 4 comes into play here. If we can get that extra $25, that would help us a long ways, based on our insurances and the toilets and everything that we have to provide for you guys before we can even have this event. We have to have the monies to do that. We don't keep a dime out of last year's, we haven't kept a dime out of the years that we've been doing this. I mean, everything's came in and everything's gone out, and we start with 0 every year. So,
Mike, were you saying number 4 or?
He's looking at on his page,
On
the
the
very
last
last
page,
page of your
Charles.
document, Charles.
Page
Just the
3
one that you
of the
have
letter
on.
from the committee.
Okay. go
Well, let me ask you this, because you stated it pretty clearly, that folks are making money. I know last year was extremely successful, and we are providing some services, particularly with our police department. Don't you think it's fair? Because I know in previous years we waived this because of the rain, and that your event wasn't successful. But last year it was a blast, and I'm anticipating, because it's later, this year it will also be very successful. Don't you think it would be fair to our city coffers for the nominal $25 fee, because the money is going to be made? I'm hesitant to waive it this year, Mike. In other words, that won't be the crux of canceling.
oh,
your fund,
no.
right?
We're just trying to get every dollar we can, basically. But yeah,
We are too.
I understand. And by the things and the feedback that we have gotten back so far today, you are correct. It is going to be bigger and larger than last year.
How many vendors did we have last year? How
Last
many
year, I
vendors?
think we had 8 or 9, maybe 12 at the most. Right now we're going on about 15 all together with a couple of displays. We have 4 displays coming in. Evil Twins Customs from over in Livermore is coming out with a trailer full of motorcycles that they've built. We've got Valley Custom Cycles out of Modesto coming in with a trailer with some more motorcycles. We've got a couple of wheels and tire people that are coming out with displays, and this is how we get the people to come back the following year. So we limit the displays, sort of like go fishing for a while and then set the hook when they show up, and then for next year they're in for the following year, no problem. But right now we're looking at a total of about 20 possible vendors and displays in the main parking lot. We've got room maybe for about 2 more, to be honest with you, because we're going to try to keep everything there. Nothing will be up on the street, so that way everything will be looked at and taken care of in one location. We do have the extra parking lot down there, but we will utilize that for motorcycle parking. And then we have the other parking lot that you guys just developed on the east side of the main parking lot.
Right.
We'll use that also for motorcycle parking if need be, which I hope and I think we will need. And I think we're going to need every inch of space that we can get downtown Newman.
And we're going to provide that for you, Mike.
That's great.
At a nominal cost.
At a nominal cost.
We're going to break even. The chief has a budget where he'll spend roughly just about $500 on having all his officers, his reserves, and his volunteers. The vendors pay $25 a piece. If you have 15 to 20, basically the city breaks even. You
Sure.
guys walk away, and like you said, the hook is out there.
Right.
This year it's going to be bigger and better than last year.
Correct.
Subsequent years it's going to continue to grow.
Another thing I was talking to Chief about was where we had the bands on both sides of the street. We're not going to have the trailers out there anymore, so we're going to utilize that space. The band will be in front of the West Side Theater underneath the ledge or awning or whatever that is, and there'll be 2 bands. One will open up at 9, and then Common Element, the local group, will play from then on after they close out. Right now, everything's pretty much in place. We're just waiting on a bright, sunny, 85-plus degree day, and we could use some more manpower, like from the nonprofit groups like the Rotary and the Lions Club and the Chamber. We could use the local groups for the manpower to pull this off. Because I have a vision that next year should be spectacular. but we have to have those groups involved to pull it off and be an annual outstanding event.
I just like to comment, I'd like to thank Mike. I was on this committee last year, and Mike does not even live in Newman. He's a Gustine resident, and he wants to keep this event going. I think we should give him a lot of credit. And last year, seeing as I was on the committee, the security was like 5 times what it was the year before, due to circumstances kind of beyond our control, but hopefully that will get back to normal. But ultimately, I like to see this event be like the Fall Festival. The same, waive the business auto license and security, and because I think this is an event that benefits the whole downtown, and it highlights the downtown more than the Fall Festival even. And this could be, we could have 2 signature events in the city, so that's what I'd like to see happen.
I have a comment for Lee. You were mentioning about going to the Apricot Fiesta for the demonstration. You can bring it to the Newman Fun Run and put it in the theater.
Good idea.
If you have any questions, I'll be standing here, or I could be sitting down. Just let me know. I can answer them, hopefully.
Questions for Mike?
Well, let me ask you this question, because the mayor was just now vying for you, asking for the waive. I'm not really willing to give it. It's not going to make or break you, is it?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to sit here and...
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, because you are doing a wonderful thing for the town, and I want to see it continue to get bigger and better. And using your phrase about the hook, this year is probably going to be the impetus to make it the big bang that you're talking about for
we
the
will.
next year.
I was telling Chief, there's going to, some of these guys that are coming with the displays, they're going to have 25 to 30 foot trailers with pullouts, and it's going to be first cab. And then, like I mentioned to these guys, don't come up and something that's patched together with some taper. You're going to go home.
First class type of thing.
You're going to go home, yeah, because it'll reflect on everybody and me and the whole city, and that's not what we want to. We don't want that. We want to run a good, clean show and have a good time, and all the local groups make some money.
Appreciate it.
Tim, you'll bring your bike out and contribute, right?
I'm going to spend some money. I'm
Okay,
at least
good.
going to eat somewhere.
Good.
You looking for direction?
Well, one thing, hang on. I would be inclined at this point, unfortunately, because looking at page 3, where it talks about the cost, where in the past the cost has been nominal at under 500, but we don't have it budgeted this year, and the fact that the police department has used its overtime budget account. The one thing I will say is I would be inclined, where Tim's saying, so we could possibly recoup some of that cost. But I will say, though, for the council, because our new budget will be coming up, this is going to be an annual event in our community, and I think it makes sense, I believe it makes sense that we start budgeting for it. When we look at the budget every year, we know this is coming back to us. Same thing with the Fall Festival. We make accommodations
Exactly.
because we know that that's going to be an important event in our community. Same thing here. And so I would just ask the council that when we look at the next year's budget coming up, that we also include this in our budget.
Hopefully this will be a
Yes.
permanent event.
And that's
like the Fall
something I
Festival.
think that could come out of, if staff could correct me if I'm wrong, the promotional accounts that we kind of sometimes designate for things that go on in the city.
Well, it depends. The $500 that we're talking about here has normally come out of the police department overtime budget.
Their funds.
That's
Okay.
where that's come from in the past. The
And
other
what I'm
costs,
saying is having
He's
it
talking about
totally
future
separate.
budget.
I understand. I understand. And the intention is every year that I think the chief plans that he may have that cost in there. It's just that we've had some overtime issues this year that that budget is depleted this year. So
Right.
that's the bottom line of it. The other costs that are mentioned in here are things such as providing, the electrical power and the barricades are kind of indirect costs that we don't really see the invoice come in on that we have to look at. So
How do
I
we
mean,
do it during the Fall Festival? Do they come out of the separate budgets for each department? Now, when we provide different things for the Fall Festival, how do we fund that? I'm trying to recall.
There are, is it within each department, Judy? I believe that it is.
Okay.
I believe it's within each department. They have, it comes out of their costs.
Okay.
A lot of it is for the Fall Festival, I believe, comes out of Public Works Department budget. for staffing to assist and set up and get things prepared for that.
Right. Okay.
Um,
So, I mean, I'd like to see us go down the same road with this event as well.
Well, and again, it sort of is, because it is within the police department's budget currently, and he attempts to budget for that, whoever, it's within that overtime budget,
Okay.
and sometimes overtime budgets we don't have a lot of control over, depending on situations that come up in the police department.
Okay.
I think the way this works out, the end of the fiscal year is a part of the problem also.
Money gets tight.
I mean, we're just about end of our fiscal year and
Right.
the pot is getting empty.
One idea that you may want to look at, if that is your desire, is to look at separating that out from the police department as a separate item, which is not within their overtime budget in the future. Put it, as you said, perhaps in the council promotions budget, rather than assuming that it is in that overtime budget.
Because this is what we're looking at, right, Chief? This cost, what you're saying in here?
I'm just anticipating that from what we've had done in years past. It's just my guesstimate as to that. We've spent a little bit less than that the year prior. Last year just happened to be extremely high due to some security issues that we were looking at. But I think we can pretty much right between, I think between $500 and $700. I think we could probably pretty much cover most of that, because we are, like I said, we are utilizing the payback day. So there are some officers that are not getting paid for that, but this is part of the scheduling, the way that schedule works.
Right. So that's the amount that I'd like to see separated for the future, because regardless of what happens with staffing issues, I'd like to see that part be something that's separate.
Security
will-
for both events.
Right.
We'll bring that out to you in your budget then, and you can look at it at that time.
Any other questions
Thanks.
for Mike?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike and Mike.
I just have one more thing to say. I won't keep you guys all night because I've got to go watch the basketball game. I've contacted Caltrans about the big caution special event sign. Hopefully there's going to be one in the area. Will be placed on the north side of town. We were trying to get one for both sides of town. Most
Highway
of our,
33?
Yeah, on Highway 33. And most of our parking, our main entrance is going to be right down by the bank. It's going to come in that way, and we're going to start on the south side and come north with everything. I'll give the chief a map of where the vendors are going to be, who's going to be in what spot, and everything. So everything will be pretty much in place, and basically that's about all I had to say. And I hope to see you guys out there on the 25th and have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We have some direction?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I move that we approve the request from the Newman Fun Run Committee to hold a fun run raising event with staff attached recommendations, and however, not waiving the $25 nominal fee for vendors.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. I will go along with the council recommendation, even though I wanted it waived. We'll work on it for next year. Item E, update on possible lease of property at 1361 Highway 33, formerly John's Muffler.
Just quickly on this, don't have a lot of information for you. However, we are negotiating with Crystal Garcia and Joaquin Pasillas to lease the building. We've got a draft lease that we're looking at. We've reviewed the facility, made sure the equipment is working, and we hope to have that lease finished and prepared to come back to you at your next meeting. The one issue that we are looking at, there are some repairs that are necessary in the restroom. Looks like it's going to be about $100 worth of repairs, and staff is going to go ahead and have those taken care of prior to leasing the facility. So that's just informational item, unless council has any questions or information they want to give me at this time on that.
Cleve, I know you met with them yesterday. Were they happy with the facility, or that's the first time they had been inside, I know?
Well, they had been inside, however, they hadn't had a chance to test the equipment because the power was off the first time we went through with them. We had the power turned back on so that they could test the compressor, make sure the lifts are working and all of that. There's a couple of questions about, there is some lighting that I don't think has been used for years around the front of the building. There's a strip of lighting that it appears to just be a trim that goes around the front of there, but it is actual light that goes all the way around the front of there. they're interested in possibly seeing if that could be made work and used. And so we'll address that with them. Whether or not we do that or allow them to do that after they come in, we'll see how that works out.
I believe those were lights that shown on the mobile signs years ago.
Right.
Since I was a gas station attendant there some years ago, I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Oh, he said 500 to 600. I got a question for staff.
Sure.
I know that this was something that I definitely supported for us to try to gain some funding from. However, I don't, as far as fixing up the product, we're going to tear it down eventually for our
Right.
plaza.
Right.
So I can't see us investing any money to try to lease it out. The nominal amount that you just mentioned to get the bathroom operative
Right.
is fine. Any other fixtures or equipment fix, things of that nature, we're not going to fix it so it can be leased.
Right.
Because
No.
that's not the purpose. Just so that we understand as a council, you gave us one report of tentatively the lease amount that we were looking to receive, $500 to $600. Are we still in that type of figure
The
range?
proposed amount, I can tell you right now, is $555 a month.
Okay.
That's based on 50 cents a foot. What the research that I did was coming between 40 and 50 cents a foot, and I put it at 50 cents a foot, and it appears that that is acceptable to them.
Okay, thank you very much.
How long were we talking about again? I wasn't at the last meeting. I'd seen the minutes, but was it 18 months?
Well, you had actually, at one meeting, authorized me to work with, I believe, up to 3 years. I believe the lease, Tom, did we put 2 years in it? Do you recall? I apologize, I don't have the
You
draft.
sure
in
those
front of me
numbers are
now.
correct?
Pardon?
You sure that's correct?
No, that doesn't sound correct to me.
Doesn't sound correct to me.
So you
When
may
we
not
came
know
back,
off the top of your
after,
head.
the first time we looked at it, and as you recall, we only had the one applicant. And when you authorized me to go back out, and I can check back, and we don't have to do that. That's acceptable, that's fine, I can go with the 18 months. And I've talked to them, and I believe they're fine with that also.
18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
After
18,
the
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I
and
think
that's
what it
fine.
was, a year and month to month.
Yeah, because the most amount of time
Okay.
we ever
Right.
talked about for the plaza project was a 24-month, 2-year window. So
Okay.
the 18-month was the least, and then
Okay.
month to month.
Okay, I'll go back and review that and make
And
sure.
I believe
that
they were,
that's-
the last time that they were here, they were okay with the 18 months.
They were.
And
yeah.
then month to month after that, so.
Right.
Any other question for Cleve on this?
Well, yeah, Cleve, just the timing on the mall downtown or the plaza area. Do we have any idea, I know it's still off and in the distance a ways, but do we have any idea as far as the timing of when that will occur?
Not really, like I say, because it's, a lot of it is dependent on us coming up with the funding for it. There is no funding in place for that right now. And so it's gonna take some work to start putting, we are still gonna go back from the consultant and get some suggested funding sources from him, but we'll work with him on that. But there is no funding in place for that project right
Yeah.
now, so.
What was the time frame again that RRM is going to do that design?
I talked to them today, and either at your next meeting or the one after that, we should be ready to come back with the final design. So we're a couple of weeks away on that, but we're close.
When are we going to wait though to talk to them as far as funding sources? Because I mean, I don't want to wait until the design's complete and it's sitting on a shelf, and then we decide to go after funding sources. I mean, I think they should probably have an idea now, while it's in progress, what funding sources. I mean, I don't want to see it sit on a shelf for several months and they say,
Well-
well, go to over here to.
Yeah. The direction that I've usually done with them, and we can change this if you'd like, is that I've gone into this the same thing we did with the streetscape, is look at, what is the design that you would like to see, and prepare that design first. And obviously we came back, as you recall, on the streetscape and changed a few things to cut some costs out, but try to provide that ultimate design that we would like to see the plaza become. And from there, then you prepare the costs, and then you look at what your funding sources might be for it.
Right.
So that's what we're waiting for, is the design.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying though, do we have an idea of what sources of funds we're going to go after? I mean, we should maybe get an idea though. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we'll have the design completed and everything.
Right.
But I mean, shouldn't we have some kind of an idea of what avenues we're going to pursue?
Well, you know, there's some things, the problem with this type of project is that there are not a lot of funding sources out there. One of the things that I'm looking at right now is possibly through some of the park bonds, because this is a plaza open space type area. It may be that we can capture some park bond funding for it. But yeah, there are some things that we're looking at and thinking about, and you know, I believe, I haven't talked to them, I didn't talk to them specifically about that today when I talked to them, but I believe that when they come back with that report, they will present those funding sources with that. But
Can you ensure that that is the case?
I can talk to them and ask them
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah.
Any other questions for Cleve? Moving on. Item F, review request to move Welcome to Newman sign from south entrance to Hills Ferry Road east entrance. Cleve?
Yeah. Mayor and Council, this was brought up, and I don't remember exactly when it was, but several months ago, and it was briefly discussed, the possibility of moving the sign. I maybe should have brought in a picture of it, but I think you're all familiar with the sign that's located next to G-Bar N down on Highway 33. And at that time, there were a few issues involved with moving it, the construction of it, how, you know, sturdy and what would it take to move it. I asked our Public Works Department to look at it. They recommended that we have someone else move it because they didn't want it to fall apart when they lifted it and then them get blamed for it. But I think, anyway, so they checked with the company. Ernie had given me an initial cost of $1,575, I believe it was. I put $1,600 in the report. He gave me actually a fax that he received just recently, which is a cost of $1,650 for a sign company to come and relocate that sign. I know at one time the property owners were concerned with moving it also of G-Bar N, but I understand perhaps that issue has been addressed and perhaps they're okay. I haven't talked to them about that this time. But because it was brought up to me, I said that I would bring it back to the council and see if the council is interested in having that moved. I did bring up some other issues that perhaps the council wants to consider, and whether or not they move that is, you know, do you want to be consistent and try and provide the same type of sign that we have on our north and south end, and try to look to the future to provide something like that. This one perhaps could be in there in the interim if it's the desire that we need to do something immediately. Also, it's the possibility that with the next subdivision coming out that way, the Sherman Ranch project, perhaps at that time we work with them to provide that sign when that goes in, something like that. But there's some other issues to look at that's involved with that. We would just like council direction on whether or not you would like us to pursue moving this sign.
I guess my concern would be out there, you know, on the east side on Hills Ferry where the city limit sign is. I mean, city limits are, we have the infrastructure, so we really wouldn't know where to put it down, you know, until we get curbs and gutters and everything in. That's what I would think. I mean, if we put it in one spot, we're going to have to move it again, ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously, this 1,600, it's not budgeted for. Taking it out of the general fund or the business license surcharge obviously isn't going to happen. I think the best way to do it, and Cleve alluded to it a minute ago, was when that area gets built out over there, and John as well said, I mean, why are you going to plunk down a sign when, you know, there's
Just in the side of the road in the weeds,
Right.
I don't think that's going to be it.
I think the best way to do it when we start getting into a development agreement with whoever's going to build on that part of town, on the further east part, I mean, at that time we can work with them and figure out, I mean, it's going to be an enhancement to their development. It's going to be the another welcome to Newman sign. It'll be right there. I think that's the best way to approach it. I think paying $1,600 is a waste of money.
Dave?
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Dave Reed, 1541 Kern Street. I'd mentioned this to Cleve last week. I know we had discussed it last year at the council. It was brought out to me by a couple people that it's more of a safety hazard. People pulling out of the G-Bar N lot and can't see around the sign to get out on the highway. And so might be something to look at is to go ahead and have the Public Works move the sign, or even just store it in the corporation yard or whatever, to eliminate the safety hazard. And if it breaks, it breaks. It's, you know, it's not that great,
Right.
but it would get it out of there and kind of help things along for people moving out of that lot. So it might be something to think about.
Yeah. And Dave, and if it's, you know, a safety issue, obviously that's a different issue, but as far as relocating it, that, you know, I don't think that that would be.
No, I agree
feasible
the
at this point.
$1,600
But
is
if
way
it,
out of.
if it's a safety
proportion,
issue,
but-
then obviously that's legitimate, but, you know.
We can go back and review that and see if, you know, if we're just taking it down, I think Ernie could probably handle that. He's-
Yeah, if you take it down, if it falls apart, it falls
Yeah.
apart, but otherwise it could be stored and put out
Yeah.
to wherever,
Right.
so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Store it for now.
We'll take a look at it, see if it appears to be, you know, talk to the owners of the property, see if it appears to be a
Right.
significant safety hazard. We can take a look at that and see what needs to be done.
Maybe and thrust the chief in there and see if there's
Sure.
been any accidents with that particular location, backing in, coming in, out of that area. Because, yeah, I didn't even know why we were trying to move it or relocate it. That was my question, but safety hazard.
I did was just to get the sign down there and move it out. There, we didn't have the sign, the safety issue.
Mhm. I know around that whole turnaround there, because you got the oleanders over there at Marty's, which if you're pulling out of there, I mean, you've got to pull almost halfway out of there to just look over to the left, that entire turn over there. So if we can look at that as well, because I know that's a safety issue as well, pulling out of there.
Any other comments? Thank you, Dave. Item G, adopt resolution approving subdivision improvements, Lean Stevens Ranch 1, Unit 2 subdivisions, and authorizing John Fanazia as mayor and M. Cleve Morris as city clerk to record a notice of completion. Ernie?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members, Ray Little, which is our precision inspection employee, and myself did a walkthrough through that phase 2 of the Stevens Ranch Unit 2 subdivision, and we found that everything seemed to be in order at that time. There was an issue on a gas line, but that has been resolved. I have documentation from PacBell, Comcast, and PG&E that everything is acceptable to them. So the staff recommendation is that the city of Newman accept Stevens Ranch 1 Unit 2 subdivision improvements.
Questions for Ernie? Direction?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item H, consider offer by Yancey Lumber to donate their current office building to the city of Newman. Cleve?
Mayor and Council, you have the attached letter from Yancey Lumber, Kern Honeywell, offering to donate the building, stated as a 111-year-old historic office building. And previously has been discussed by the Plaza Committee that perhaps that could be used and as a visitors bureau / maybe chamber office located at the corner where John's Muffler currently is, as a kind of an entry point there in the city. That was looked at, and if you look at the draft plaza plan that was presented to us, there were 2 options. One was to do that. The other is a proposal to possibly build the old Russ House, right? Is that what it is, Judy? On that corner, which was on that corner at one time, or a replica of that, which would, if that were done, would possibly preclude this building from being in that location. It may not fit both in the same area. As we looked at this, the main concern is that we met with Mr. Honeywell today, in fact, and he's ready to move forward with the project, hopefully this summer. And the concern is whether or not, if we were to put it according to option 1 on the plaza plan, if we were to try to put it in that location, it wouldn't fit because of the Johns Muffler building that is still there. So there's not room for it to fit there. Therefore, we would have to put it on a different location, which wouldn't be in the same location as shown on the plaza plan. Concern with putting it down there without actually being used for, we don't know how long till the plaza actually becomes a fruition. There'll also be the cost of moving the building, and other things associated with that. With that said, if option one does become the preferred option of that plan, and we do decide that we want a Visitors Bureau / Chamber of Commerce building on that site, I think that old building could be a very useful and good building to have. My concern is between now and when we decide to move to that point where we know that that's what we want, what happens to that building, as Yancey Lumber is going to have it off their site probably this summer and moved somewhere. You know, you can talk about moving it to a temporary site and storing it. We have concerns about, as you know, as buildings are left vacant and they're left out somewhere, quite often they become in disrepair and all kinds of things broken down and etc. So those are the staff concerns with doing that, but because this was presented to us and it will be coming up soon here, that Yancey Lumber will probably be looking at getting rid of it, we want to bring it to council and see if council has some direction on what you would like us to do.
Have we got any cost estimates, Cleve, on moving it?
We have not gone that far yet.
Cleve, on the option one here, it talks about moving it. Option one, the building would not fit without the removal of the John's Muffler building.
Correct.
Just 5 minutes ago, we said to go ahead and do an 18-month lease
right
on that building with month to month. So, I mean,
So what were
obviously,
you thinking when you wrote that on the report?
obviously that's not going to happen because.
Well, when I wrote this report, I didn't know you were
No,
going to
we're gonna
approve
get
that
right.
18-month lease, and
So, I mean,
we still
option-
haven't approved that 18-month
Right,
lease.
but-
So, but yeah, if we go ahead with that, then obviously it's not going to fit on that site.
What's the square footage on that building? Any idea how big that building is?
I want to say about 600-700 feet is all. It's not.
What's the dimensions on it though? About
I would say maybe something like 20 by 30.
20
It's
by 30.
not very big.
It'd be almost square by the time you take it
Right.
off.
The office portion is going to come off. It'll only
Oh.
be the main building. So,
so about 700 square feet without the office.
as I recall in talking to Kern today, it's about 600 to 700 feet. Isn't that right, Michael? We were talking to him. I don't have the exact dimensions of it.
But as far as the plaza designs, the committee hasn't decided yet if they're going to go with the Russ House rebuild or the Yancey, right? That's still kind of undecided also, right?
Well, the decision that the committee came up with was to put both options in the final plan. And then as we move forward, if the Russ House becomes a reality, that's a possibility, they wanted to have that option in there to be considered. We don't know yet that that's going to become a viable option. If it does not, then option one, which is to place some sort of visitors bureau on that corner, is the preferred option. So we may not know which of those options we are going to use for
Now, is that gonna be
a
on
year
the
and a half,
site?
2-3 years down the road.
Is that going to be on the site though, where we've said that we wanted to have something there, some type of retail pad that's going to be a revenue generator for the city? Is that the same?
It's one of the options.
That's one of the options on
That's
the
one of
Russ
the
House
options, yeah,
rebuild.
for the Russ House
Right.
rebuild. Yeah.
So ultimately, say number 2 option would be to rebuild the Russ House and have the Yancey building, which then the Yancey building would go to the north of John's
No,
Muffler, right?
option 2 would not include the Yancey building.
But I mean, just say that number, I mean, if both of them, I just said that number
Okay.
for, but if they went with both, Plaza Committee with both,
Okay.
recreation of the Russ House and saving the Yancey building, the Yancey building would go to the north of where John's Muffler is now, right?
Well, probably. The plan doesn't really show that.
Right.
The plan that they drew up showed either the Russ House or this other Visitors Bureau, possibly the Yancey building.
Not both.
It didn't show both.
Didn't show
there
both.
wasn't an option showing both, as I recall.
Dave?
Mr. Mayor, there was an option that showed the Yancey building by the dentist's office, actually behind John's Muffler. So that, if that were the case, it could fit in there with no problem. You could still leave John's Muffler there for 18 months or whatever. still
That's what I
involved.
thought. I thought that,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I thought
But
there
it
was
would
an
still
option
involve
that,
stabilizing the building and
Right.
putting on some sort of a
right.
foundation.
There was an option to have both buildings.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Well, that,
And
that
then
was,
they-
that was one of the early options, but it wasn't included in the final one that was adopted. That was one of the previous drawings that.
It was one of the last two
RM
they
showed.
brought up, yeah.
Right, but it
Yeah.
wasn't one of the final that was adopted by the
Right.
council. Not to say you can't go back and change it, I'm
Yeah.
just saying that the final one
But
did not
that's
show
all I
that.
was saying, is that there
Right.
was an option in there.
That's true, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So where are we at then? We need to decide if we want to take the building? That's
That's basically it.
timetable
So
here.
what we want to do is so that staff can begin to pursue that and see what the costs are going to be if it is the desire of the council to take that building. We need to start figuring out, where we could put it, what's it going to cost us to put it somewhere, and et cetera.
I'm glad to see you step up there.
Mary?
Are you really? I'm glad to
Yes,
be
I
here.
am.
Mayor, Councilman Cleve. As president of the Newman, Mary Moore, 1442 Q Street, president of the Newman Historical Society. And as the president of the Historical Society, we would like to see something worked out between us and the city where we could keep that building. That building was moved from Hills Ferry in 1893 on skids by horses. And it's one of our old buildings, and we would like to maybe work with the city, go into information center and maybe put up some of the things that we do not have room in our museum for, and work right along with you guys, if we could work something out, but we would like to see the building saved.
Well, what was so nice about seeing you step up there, Mary, I didn't have to ask, because that was my next thing to do, was to ask about staff redirecting this with the Historical Society, because we're in the preservation of trying to keep old buildings. And I think the mayor's conveying a message that we would want this building that current Honeywell is
Absolutely.
so graciously going to try to donate to the city.
Look at all possibilities here.
Yeah, this staff report is kind of limited in its options, but I think that there are many more options out there. Ultimately, whatever our committees present to us, the commission presents to us in recommendation, we make the decision on. And sometimes we kind of brainstorm up here and come up with other options that may not be forthright that we see in a report. Just kind of briefing, it sounds as if we may have enough room behind John's Muffler, by the dentist's office, to even incorporate this in the plans that we recently approved of. Is that something that I'm hearing?
It could possibly be, yes.
Well, that's something that sounds like could go back to the committee through staff, along with the Historical Society, to decide how we could preserve the building to place it.
Right.
Because
We don't have any room, otherwise we would gladly take the building,
Over there.
but as you know, we don't have any. But we would work with you in any way we can, and just to save it,
well, the
being-
prime example is what you did over next to the library with the old schoolhouse. I mean, that's a prime example. I'm envisioning the same thing with this, with the Yancey Lumberyard building.
Okay.
I would suggest that we get some costs involved on moving it and storing it, and possibly moving it if we had to move it a second time. Storing it somewhere and moving it again.
Find some location.
Find
that we
some
could
costs
actually
involved and
store it and
come on,
secure
take a
it.
look.
We used the Turlock House Movers. They gave us a good break on it, Mayor, and
Okay.
maybe they would again, because they were very, very reasonable for moving it 6 miles, from the hills down here.
Right.
So they probably would work with us again.
Hopefully this one's only be a couple block moves.
Right, right. But I think that was Turlock House Movers, and
Right.
I think they would work with us any way they could. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mary.
Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Mary, we can just get some skids and pull it right down the road.
There you go.
Who has a
Some old
dually
mules.
wheel truck?
Can we have some direction here then on what we'd like to do?
I
Do
think
we need some-
I don't think I need a motion. I think I
Okay.
have sufficient
Yeah.
information. That's all we needed
Does
to
everybody
have. That
concur
we can
Bring
for
back
staff
costs.
to
we
get
will
some costs
begin
involved?
preparing costs and look at options. We'll look at that option to see if it could fit back there in the corner of, basically it would be on the John's Muffler property, I think would be the only location we can put it right now. Is that correct, David? Is that what you were looking at? In the corner of his property? Yeah.
Well, let's take it a
Yeah.
step further.
But anyway, we'll take a look at that and
For
see.
additional options of where it could be stored until we're actually ready to commence with restoring it.
Okay.
So that's another option.
Sure.
Whatever city properties we may have that it may be able to be stored in as
Okay,
well.
we'll take a look at that and bring back those options to you and the costs and
go from there.
Thank you, sir.
Sounds good, thank you. Okay, we'll go back to item A, video presentation, cloudy skies over California cities.
Okay.
Do I really want to see this?
Yeah, you do. It's a very good video. I've seen it.
Because I'm going to be in Sacramento tomorrow.
They might not show it though.
And if anybody wants to check out, thank you, and if anybody wants to clear out.
For sure, have some popcorn or something.
Yeah.
Lee, maybe we can move that darn thing twice. If we put it, no, if we put it right there, close by.
But you mean still?
It's easy to see why we choose to live here in the Golden State. Boundless recreational options, a diverse economy, safe communities, and a lifestyle envied by others around the world. But what if everything that we consider special about California was suddenly threatened? Would we still want to live here if we called 911 and nobody came? Would our community be the same if our parks were overgrown and dangerous? What would our city be like without a library? Our climate may be second to none, but the skies over California today are cloudy. Our cities are financially threatened, seriously threatened. How did California cities get into this situation? Simply, it's because unlike cities in many other states, our cities don't have a stable source of funding they can count on from year to year without state interference. They're constantly under threat from numerous fronts outside their control, including continuing raids on property taxes and other city revenues to pay for state government budget crises. At the same time, demand for police and fire services is way up as we focus on homeland security. So what suffers the most? Our parks and libraries and roads and many other parts of community life that are so important to us. And now our city is under attack like never before as the state proposes to slash money for cities to unthinkable levels. How bad is our city budget situation? The state has taken over $6 billion from California cities during the past decade. Plus, cities are contributing hundreds of millions of dollars more each year to help pay for state services. And now, over $1 billion that cities receive from our car fees is at risk during the current state budget crisis. Even though California voters passed a constitutional mandate that these fees would go to cities and counties, the state may tap into these funds to solve its own budget problems. This violates the spirit of our state's constitution and the intent of California's voters. If this money disappears, we'll be hit right where it hurts the most: public safety. Over half of the typical California city's discretionary money is spent on police and fire protection. With these cuts, our cities could lose 12,000 police officers or 15,000 firefighters. What happens if the state gets its way? Cities will have no choice but to take police officers and firefighters off the street and slash every other kind of local service. Well, there's more for cities to worry about. Lots more. The state is considering taking more than $1 billion in redevelopment revenues from cities, money that directly creates construction and other jobs. Plus, many of these are jobs which would actually build affordable housing, which we so desperately need right now. When we look at how much our city government gives us for our relatively small tax dollar, there's no doubt that city services are a great bargain, especially when we consider how little our local taxes really goes to our city. Most of the taxes we pay go straight to the state and federal governments, with a very small amount actually going to our city governments to pay for things right in our own community. We might think that our taxes are paying for a lot of our city services. Well, statewide, our cities only receive 16% of every property tax dollar, 13% of every sales tax dollar, and less than 0.5% of state general revenues. And while we may think we're paying more taxes to our city than ever before, we're actually paying a lot less than we were 2 decades ago. During that time, state spending as a percentage of personal income has increased 17%, while city spending has fallen 4%. How much of a bargain is our city? The average city resident pays about $50 a month in taxes for city services. That $50 could also pay for one of these. Or that same $50 pays for all of these. City government is a bargain, and we receive an awful lot from our local tax dollars. And that's what makes these state budget proposals even more alarming. When we think about what kind of government has the most influence on our life and who responds to us fastest when we really need it, it's our city. Which is why we need to act now to change things. Visit or call your city hall to see how you can help your community reach a more stable financial future. You can also visit www.cacities.org, where you'll find lots of information about the fight to save California's cities. The skies over California's cities may be cloudy right now, but if we act together, quickly and decisively, we'll have many years of sunny days ahead.
That video was made by the League of California Cities, and it pretty much says it all. We're at the mercy of the state, and we'll see what the governor has to say in the next couple days, but when he comes out with his revised budget. But
Yeah, I just want to mention quickly, John, we have this video. It is available if this gets on the television. If there's any service organizations or anyone else who would like to have this played for their membership, we would be happy to let them use it. As you know, it is a very serious message and that is happening in California, and it could be critical to the survival of the cities. If some of the proposals go through that are currently being proposed, it could be drastic changes for the way we do things in the cities. So just want to make that note and make that available to anyone who'd be interested in getting a copy or looking at that video. We can make that available to them.
thank you, Cleve. Item 12, item from the city manager.
Yes, Mayor and Council, a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. I know that Councilmember Parker was originally scheduled to go to the STANCOG meeting tomorrow night. That has been changed. What was the date on that?
It's going to be the following Wednesday, the
following
21st.
Wednesday. Thank you. The reason I bring that up is one of the items that we've been negotiating with a little bit on, not at the policy board level, which he sits on yet, but at the advisory committee levels, is the possibility of trading our CMAQ funds, the portion that is distributed a certain amount to each city, CMAQ and actually RSTP funds, for LTF funds with some of the larger cities. And we were moving along pretty well with that till it got to the technical advisory committee, which was the city managers. And unfortunately, there was one city manager that was missing at that meeting. They had it narrowed down to only having the bottom, the three smallest cities actually do that exchange. And it kind of went down, and at least at that point, at that committee level, it went down in flames. It would have been a real value to us because, for example, our portion of CMAQ funds that we were proposed to receive this coming year, was about $38,000, I believe. It probably would take us $5,000 to $10,000 to administer that $38,000 because of all the paperwork that is required, and therefore that's a value to us. Also, one of the proposals along with this that was going through was that no project could be done for under 100 that was less than $100,000. Well, if we're only receiving $38,000, what do we do with our money? So it's kind of a little bit of a conflict there, but unfortunately. That went down. I kind of understand why. The larger cities are facing the same budget crunches that we are. They use their LTF funds as we do for street maintenance, and these RSTP and CMAQ funds that we were proposing to exchange with them, they cannot use for street maintenance. So I understand their purpose, and yet it presents a real quandary. That is one of the reasons, because after the results of the Technical Advisory Committee meeting, we were kind of concerned, and that's why we have gone back aggressively with this proposal that was presented to you tonight for the CNG vehicle station and vehicles that we will be pushing hard to get, along with 3 other smaller cities that are also trying to do something. It's a pretty aggressive amount that we're asking for, but we're going to push forward with it and see where it goes. Other items, wanted to report to the council that yesterday morning we discovered that our snack bar at Barrington Park and also the youth center, which we are preparing to open as a teen center, were both broken into. Nothing major. There was nothing taken from the youth center except for our recreation supervisor's small stereo boombox type stereo that she had there. Nothing else was taken. They looked through things but didn't take anything. There was quite a bit of food and candy and stuff that was taken from Barrington Park. We're taking measures to secure the Barrington Park snack bar better, and also the youth center. We are currently working on having an alarm system installed over there to hopefully take care of those problems.
So this was a physical break-in?
Yes. Yeah. The other thing I want to report on that, and just get some council, a little bit of council feedback on the teen center. We are looking currently at 3 possible dates for a grand opening, if you will, at that teen center. The first date that we were pushing for is actually a week from Saturday, the 24th. And that was the one that we were kind of moving towards. However, when we took that to the Recreation Commission, they raised some concerns that that is Memorial Day weekend, and that it might preclude some people from being able to come to that. That is the first date we were looking at. The second date we looked at was moving it back the next weekend to the 31st. However, some people raised some concerns also that that is the Patterson Apricot Festival, and if that might be a conflict. And I don't know whether it would or not here in Newman, but anyway, that issue was raised. The other possibility is to look at a Friday night. Those were both Saturdays, the 23rd of May, as another possibility. I'm bringing it to this because I think it would be great to have each of you present if you could. I know you all have conflicts with other things, but if you could be present at that event. And we're trying to arrange for some demonstrations. One from a Taekwondo group that is interested in holding classes in the teen center once we get it open. Possibly some skate park demonstrations by some of our skateboarders in the community, and some other things that we will be doing that night. So we are, just for your information, we are looking at opening the facility next Monday, the 19th. And so we are going to open it prior to actually having that grand opening. We'll be doing a few things during that week, and having it open, getting feedback from the teenagers as they come in and stuff and use the facility. But I'd just like some feedback on you on perhaps what some preferred dates might be for that grand opening, and then we'll move forward with it.
How many people do you really think wouldn't come on the 24th because it's Memorial Day weekend?
I don't really know. That's date. You know, there's 2 things. At one point we said that's a good date because we don't have baseball going on over there, so there's no conflict. There's no baseball that Saturday. However, others said, well, it might be good to have baseball because that means there will be people there for it.
Is there baseball on the 31st?
Yes.
Well, I don't see why we would have to contend with the Apricot Festival in Patterson.
Yeah.
It's a Newman affair.
Right.
I like that date.
Well, I think looking at the fun run is on the 25th, so
Correct.
obviously there's going to be a few people still in town.
Yeah.
So either one's fine.
24th, 31st.
I would like
Obviously Friday night, the 23rd is not going to work for me.
Yeah,
I would like to see us
You
do
can
it.
actually, Cleve, have it on both days.
There you go.
Then you can get
Either way, like,
everybody.
open. I think we should do it on the 24th. Get it. You know, we need to get her open and get her done as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Whoever shows up, shows up. Seems like no matter what date we pick, it's going to be a conflict. So.
Yeah.
The weekend after that, maybe
Pick a date,
something else. It may be
I
the
could-
Atwater or something.
Well, I concur with the mayor's date. Let's just go for the most expedient date, the
24th.
24th.
Great. That's fine.
What time are we? assessing it?
That's a Saturday,
All day afternoon?
on the 24th. We will probably do it sometime, not early morning, but maybe 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning.
And how long do we suspect? that
It will, we will open it up. We'll probably be open that day for, 4 or 5 hours, but the actual event will probably only take, half an hour to an hour. And then there may be some other things that will go on during that day.
Like open house, people come in
Right.
and
Just
see,
invite
tour
people
the
to come in.
facility. And
Yeah.
sounds good.
Very good.
Okay. The only other point that I wanted to make is with the industrial park, I know there's some concerns there. We do have our plans with Merced County. We have them signed by, they're signed by us, they're signed by the irrigation
CCID.
district and CCID, and they are with Merced County. I talked to them yesterday, and they said they will move them forward as quickly as they can. We believe we have given them everything they've asked for now, and they should be signed.
So who are they gonna move them forward to, though?
They're gonna, that's the city, their engineering office, so they not move forward the process of the final review and getting them signed, is what they're saying. And I spoke to Steve Hamilton, who was in charge of those yesterday about that. Have been in contact with Norbert Rocha and his engineer. We thought they were close with their plans, found out yesterday that they are still, at least at that time he said, he was still about a month away from submitting those. So I think we're on line with where we're going to be with him being ready. We made some suggestions for some things that he might could do to actually get going a little quicker and maybe move forward. So we're trying to work with him and see if there's some changes he might want to do to make that happen. But we are in contact with him also on his project. And with that, I think that's all that I have, unless there's any questions on any of these items.
Just on that, I talked to Norbert about an hour before the meeting. He's hanging in there, and staff is working with him to start moving dirt as fast as we can. So he's happy the way things are moving, so he's hanging in there. So I think we're on the right track. Thank you, Cleve. Items from city council members. Tim?
Just briefly, the reason why the clouds in the sky was something I knew would be redundant for. I think it was nice that we have it for the people at home. Was at the state capitol on Monday, myself and I know John, and I think Cleve, you're attending as well tomorrow.
Yes.
And also Thursday, on behalf of our locale and all the local cities, to try to secure and keep the state from continuing to digress and take away our funding. You saw how things are meted out, the money gets handed down to us, and that's our priority, so we can keep our town in the black. I have nothing further.
Charles?
Nothing, other than, actually, the building on Inyo and, or not Inyo, Yolo and Highway 33. Have we gotten any resolution on that as far as the building permit issue, as far as allowing them to continue work?
No, I don't think we've heard back from them on that, on the car lot, Michael. We haven't heard any. We basically, what we did is we stopped them, as you know, and said they needed to provide plans for the changes that they were doing, and we have not heard back from them on that.
Have we gotten a date from, and I was just looking at it over the weekend, have we gotten a date from Lloyd on when he's gonna pave that parking lot?
We've been in contact with him. We're trying to encourage him. It's time to move forward with it now, but we don't have a formal date. I'll try and get that for the council and let them know.
'Cause wasn't that part, didn't we do I'm trying to recall this, didn't we do a loan as part of that
Yes.
Yep.
whole thing? Didn't we have a specific time
But
that it needed to be?
I don't recall there was a specific time, but we didn't give him the money up front. He has to do the work and then he gets the
Okay.
money, so he doesn't have the money.
I think the
At least
weather
not
was
all
one
of it.
delay, Charles, as far as laying the asphalt, but the way the weather is now, hopefully it'll be moving along.
He should be able to do it now, yeah.
Anything else, Charles?
Nope.
Bob?
Thank you.
Just one comment. Cleve, we had all the volunteers downtown planting flowers in the tree wells, and I know you were down there, so you know what I'm going to say. But could we have an evaluation of the water system that feeds those tree wells?
Sure.
The problem is, we're down there, we're spending money, and of course you have volunteers putting in plants and everything, and they're not going to survive if they don't get water. And so if we could just, it shouldn't take much for someone to go down there and see which ones are not working. I know it sounds like a minor thing, but when you get down there on your hands and knees and
Run into a dry
for
one,
several
yeah.
hours,
And thank you for meeting that challenge, Bob.
Well, I'll meet the challenge every time.
I know you.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Bob. I just wanted to thank Lee Lundgren and her staff for coming this evening and giving us that fine presentation. And I'm sure everything will go well for the election.
We're staying here so you can practice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we are the first county,
First
city.
city in our
first city
county.
in this county.
We're making history, Bob.
And
Thank you.
You were saying in your
Which-
staff report, Lee, with the different counties in California, when was this first introduced again?
I'm sorry, if you'd like to repeat that question.
When was this first introduced in any other cities or counties in California?
The first touchscreen in California that was used was in the last election, the November election.
Okay.
And that was by Alameda, Riverside, and Plumas counties. Those are part of the 11 counties that have been decertified. Their voting systems are decertified. They cannot be used to vote. And they have, and I'm not sure exactly the date they have because we are not one of them, to clarify and change their systems. So all those 11 have to go to a touchscreen system first. The rest of us have to do something by 2006 to be in line with the federal law, the HAVA law, Help America Vote Act.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I have one other question. When we send out the voters pamphlet, would it have been a good idea to put something in there telling about this new voting procedure?
Yes, it would, and they will find it.
It is in there.
Yes, and here's a copy of the pamphlet. I have that here today. You can see
Okay.
that. And the citizens of Newman should be receiving that within the next 2 to 3 days. I would think they're being sent out. We sent them out today to be mailed. There's a letter in it from me that explains that you are the very first city in Stanislaus County that will be using touchscreen elections, a little bit about them and how to use the keypad. And then if you'll notice on the front page of that voter pamphlet, it indicates the same thing we showed you tonight, how to select and read the ballot. And then there's a picture of the voting touchscreen as well as the different absentee ballot. So one's paper, one's electronic, and you'll see exactly how they look so that the voter is not confused.
Very good.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I wanted to make.
So that was a good idea.
Yeah. it was.
Well, yeah, but you already,
Charles, do you have a question?
I didn't.
Oh, that was me, actually. I was just going to make mention all this talk about the county. This has nothing to do with you, actually, Lee, but with Fink Road, where we saw the snafu,
Okay.
I guess that was
I'll sit.
done by staff, that was a real
Snafu,
big
I'm leaving.
concern of mine.
It's not your snuff.
Yeah, it's not yours, but it was something that I asked the city manager to kind of find out more from the county, how that really happened. And what I'm speaking of is the expansion over at Fink Road that the west side had a lot of problems with. And there was something that was submitted to the state that in actuality spoke about the 1,000 acres rather than the meted down amount. The 100, how much was it?
129.
129 that the county approved. I wanted to know, how did that happen? And Paul Caruso, of course, was on top of it and made a comment publicly in the paper. But, you have to hold, we're the politicians, but you certainly have to hold staff accountable for something they do that wasn't necessarily approved by policy and direction. So I've asked our staff to kind of try to find out and mitigate with the county what was really going on with that.
Tim, I was attended the solid waste management meeting at the county building, and there was a presentation. The Modesto City Attorney Mike Kwasnowski, I believe his name is? Milledge. And he kind of gave a presentation on that, and he assured that it was kind of a snafu, that paperwork, got jumbled up and stuff.
How'd you feel about that?
But there's going to be a whole report on that. They're checking in it.
And rightfully so.
And they're meeting with the state officials and all that stuff.
Rightfully
There
so.
was kind of nobody really admitted who did it.
Well, and that's the point. Somebody has to be held accountable because, you can just brush it off, but things can sometimes fall through the cracks that are things that have been approved, and the next thing you know, you got yourself quite a quandary, backpedaling out of it. So,
We don't
that's my
want
only
until the
comment.
grand opening.
Yeah.
By the way.
You don't want to grant for the dump?
By the way, we're going to start taking garbage all over the state and nation, yeah.
If there's nothing else, I have a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Let's go vote.